You could call him Mr. Incredible, but he far exceeds that. He's had a master plan his entire life of acquiring some of the most magical items he could find. Collection has him being well off, and the other heroes would agree. They appreciate all of the sacrifices he makes. He'll always come through to shove his spear down the villain's throats, or have his dragon scorch miles of terrain, forcefully with the over-shoulder stabs and the spear planting from above while he's traveling at 80 miles per hour. Forcefully. While his giant, beautiful dragon makes it superbly easy for him to do that, without either, he could still uppercut a man so hard, the sweat of all of the molecules of heads catches a rainbow in the light, then cut him in half to put the fear of Scarros and the remaining men that need their asses turned inside out. Yo, it's your favorite N-word again, Terrence Prescott Barnes, and this is the characterization sheet of Scarros. Birth name, Edaku Ozalar Farul. Superpower is Psychic. Fighting techniques are Shika and Kempo. Weapons are the Ark's Throne, which is a spirit spear, and the Galactic Smith and Wesson set of guns. He's of lawful good nature, age 35, height 6'11", weight 287. Ethnicity is Surinamese human. Birthplace is Dorgrave, Satron, of the Diamond Nation, in the Osiris dimension. His occupation is a college professor at the Coconut Institute of Higher Learning. Yes, this is Dilizzle and the worst third partner. An adventuring archaeologist and nutritionist, a galactic class hero through the Thunder Rose group. His birthday is October the 12th. He's a Libra, A negative blood, homosexual, sexual orientation. Overall religion is good orderly direction and don't try it. His secrets are he enjoys dancing at concerts like it's the only thing keeping him alive. Another secret is when he's out flying with Mesa, his dragon life companion, the two of them will use their psychic powers to turn clouds into orbs, disrupting Mother Nature at will because they can, but more so doing it while they hang out with each other during downtimes because it's their favorite thing to do while talking. Alright, that updated. Physical description. Hair color is royal, short crop, low cut, finger waved cuts. Facial hair is full of cut, waved beard. Eyes, blue violet with violet rims. Body type is ripped wrestler type. Heavyweight. Skin tone dark sepia. Actually, let me go and add another 10 pounds to his weight. 297. Physical condition is fit like a gladiator and a lumberjack. Equally built in strength and speed. Mark, scars, and tattoos. There's too many to identify. He has battle wounds of all kinds. He loves looking in the mirror and remembering them, especially the time his left arm got dismantled in a high superpower fight, but somehow still came out the victor. Didn't even bleed to death because of his spear, but at the same time could only wield it with one hand because the other was torn off. He often touches around the upper arm area of the left arm to remind him that he'll never lose. He really loves it when the worst touches it in any way, shape, or form. Clothing. When working, Scarros likes to wear clothing that is huggable since he's a nutritionist. He wants to show people what it looks like being on a superhero diet. He dresses beyond professional for work and likes his colors heavily saturated to make his skin pop. Vanity is a mess sometimes, but his vanity is much worse when he's dressing outside of work and superhero work. He likes to wear oversized shirts, so he always has this homeless swag about him. Pants are extra baggy too, to match the oversized shirts, and tends to wear nothing but boots if he's not vacationing. Very rough trade of him, but he always wears this small necklace that's made out of a very small amount of the god meteor dust he possessed in Edgemere. And if you remember from the other ones, the god meteor dust is when two black holes meet, and it's the residual dust of how they meet and combine. The necklace is as silver as a spaceship, but has an underbelly that's the ghoulish gray color of the god meteor dust. The necklace is in the shape of the Cuban link style choker necklaces. When it comes to the colors and styles of the clothing, he goes for the wildest looking articles. His favorite article of clothing is the silver God meter necklace he has. Only takes it off when he's in his alter ego. And his costume is heavily purple and extremely bright purple. All plates of it is a very vivid look into the true color of psychic powers. His mask covers all of his head except for his nose down. His suit is equipped to help the extra defense so he can be the tank that he wants to be. The overall theme of his costume is Scarros. Personality: likes the worst, Dilizzle, his best friends, Mesa, his dragon companion, the Thunder Rose group, the people that they were assigned to when they got into the superhero group as teenagers, which is a whole entire conundrum. And let me explain a little bit about that real quick. So the superhero guild, in the supervillain guilds, they take in anybody. You don't need parental guardian signing off on anything. If you want to be a superhero, they be like, let's get them started young. If you want to be a villain, let's get them started young. And you can go up and fill out the forms, go through the superpower test and see how strong you are. See if you and then you'll be assigned to a superhero, a supervillain, or a super group. And in their case, the three of them got hitched to the Thunder Rose group because the Thunder Rose group happened to be at the superhero guild that was closest to the summer camp when they met, and Dilizzle was like talking to them that whole month and a half of their summer camp, trying to get them to be superheroes once they met and things like that. And she did it. She convinced them, and they went all up in their superhero guild. And the next thing they know, they had the son of a very powerful aerologist, the son of a very powerful dragon tamer, and the daughter of two very famous A-list celebrity event planners. So they took the good with the bad, and the bad would be because Dilizzle is so pretty, and you can tell who she's the daughter of if you know her parents, that she can be identified as a superhero if she didn't have a mask on. So they had to force all the kids to wear masks and whatnot because they had famous parents and whatnot. So the Thunder Rose group took the three of them together because if the three of them was assigned to just one hero, then it would be a much more difficult way of getting them into superheroism if you understand the connotations of the 13 galaxies and the fame of parents. There's a lot of humans floating around now, and it's 13 galaxies, 13 worlds full of different people. Then you had the dimensions as well. So the fame of it all, if they're that famous and they have to take the good with the bad, it means that their parents are really household names. So people know about them even from the Milky Way galaxy to the 13th galaxy, and they from 5 and 4. So with all of that being said, they were still allowed to be superheroes at a very young age, and they took the good with the bad. And Dilizzle's superpowers were so powerful that she could make clones of them. So they were pretending like they were at home when they were really out in different dimensions and galaxies, getting their superhero chops going so they can develop their alter egos for when they turn adults and all of this other stuff. And then the rest of his likes are his parents, dragons, rugby, doctoring, taking care of his students, taking care of his patients, aptitude testing, minding his business, coffee, the UFC. Dislikes: weaklings, missing out on action, villains, danger, anti-psychic materials, being still for too long, and silence. So the missing out on action thing. So like I said, Dilizzle made them clones and whatnot, and the Scarros fucking loves Dilizzle for that, and that's why they're best friends, because she allowed for him to live the life that he always wanted when he was young, because his father was a dragon tamer and already a hero. He wanted to be exactly like his father, and he didn't take no for an answer, so he did it as soon as possible. Now, moving right along, fears, not a fan of fears. Hobbies: power training, psychic readings, being read by psychics, psychic games, practicing psychiatry every now and then, playing rugby, watching rugby. sparring, fighting, battling dragons, weaponry, and swimming. Goals: to live a true life of an intergalactic superhero. Excuse me. Um, Occupation, primarily the nutritionist thing at the Coconut Institute of Higher Learning, where he is teaching people and things like that. This is primary job, his alter ego, intergalactic superhero to the max. Everybody knows him. Most of the heroes love him, but the new heroes are very much afraid of him, and you'll figure that out in the rest of his personality. Favorite food is beef, meats, veggies, fruits, and everything really. Least favorite food, none really. Most prized possession, the memory of him getting jumped by some high schoolers when he was just an elementary kid. He has since gotten revenge on them, but that's where a majority of his own 100% persona comes from, the gang mentality. So, to touch on it, one of the bad things about being black is that gang mentality is everywhere in all neighborhoods, and it's downright deplorable, to be honest. You can't walk through any kind of projects without some group of niggas trying to fight you because they have a bad life, and that happened to him. And his very mean, abrasive, aggressive attitude of talking comes from beating all of their asses when he got the chance to, and they are not doing well. So, vernacular, Aurel Serenamese deep in the commanding accent. Aptitude, IQ equals 189, equally book smart and street smart. Psychological condition, completely sane, regardless of his rough around the edges nature. Psychics generally are sane to the complete capacity. He knows how to harness his rage and peace to survive different types of encounters with enemies. He knows he can wild out when there are no innocents around, but when they are, the use of his spirit and powers change from not caring about a license to kill to incapacitation strategies. He has never unjustly taken a life. So, even though he's a doctor, he applied for the license to kill thing, which is something that the worst and did not do. Even though he's a grunt-ass person, he can kill at will, and it could be justified because he's a intergalactic hero. But for Scarros' sake, Scarros wants to kill. It's a rage thing that came with the whole getting jumped, Fodder being so powerful, Fodder figuring out ways to help him become powerful and things like that. Because, you know, in this day and age, parents realize that their kids are growing up in a different time period than they did, because they generally start having kids at 40 years old, and there's a 40-year difference, and the world is different. You have different other different people around, and he has to figure out a way to help his son become powerful, because that's what he wanted to do. He wanted his son to follow in his footsteps of being an intergalactic superhero and things like that. So that's what had happened. Character behavior about their life: altruistic, intelligent, protective, strategic, and trill. Relationships, the worst. They met when they were 7, when their families migrated from their own dimensions to come live in the real world. They both went to planet Zalora, ended up in City Chan at the mere ages of 7. Oddly becoming neighbors in the same apartment complex, and oddly becoming best friends because of it. They were cool as kids but turned tumultuous when puberty struck a few too many nerves. Leading up to that, they were considered besties with Dalissa as a pen pal from Dr. Summer Camp. They were inseparable during the summer and constantly in each other's lives outside of it, because they oddly lived in the same time zones on different planets of different galaxies. But they didn't stop Dalissa. From leading them to each other in ways they would come to think later. Then they were 13, hanging out at the park with neighborhood friends. It was getting dark. The street lamps came on and the kids were disappearing one by one. Then it was those two standing on a giant jungle gym. No apartment lights on in any windows. Scarros couldn't sense any conscious brain activity from any window with a viewpoint to the park. Their orange light stick strong to them. As they stood atop of it, just talking about things, Scarros asked the worst to sit with him, facing him in the very center of it. They talked and talked way into 9 p.m. Then Scarros asked if he could show him something. Leaned back just enough so he could show it. Then he leaned forward. The worst met him with a kiss. then disappeared into the jungle gym. Not entirely consummated, but they started going steady after that. Dalusa got the news the next day, and her entire day was lit at school. Then there's Mesa, bonded together by birth, immediately gave his pet dragon psychic powers. It's how he stays alive for the most part, because if he's on a battlefield that's on the surface of a planet or a space colony big enough with a biosphere, she will be out there fucking up infidels with him. He trained her from the moment he could speak, and she has never disobeyed him because of how sweet he treats her. I'll correct something real quick. She is the only being on this planet besides his parents, the worst in Dalusa, that he treats with sweetness. If it's not his space dog saving him on the battlefield, it's Mesa. Social and other pressure problems. Oh, by the way, you should know by now, Mesa is derivative of TK Mesa. And then the social and other pressure problems. His austere position on being about their life will have everyone acting right in his presence. He's usually the hero in a group that all new up and comers ends up not being themselves while around him because they are scared to speak around him. Getting into words with him is like never knowing when he is in a light mood unless you can feel it in your mind. His brooding demeanor is exhausting. He has that you might not want to do that energy. Beliefs and morals. There are plenty of ways to be good. I'm plenty of them. Okay, let me reread it. There are plenty of ways to be good. I'm plenty of them. So this Scarros basically saying something. So lead by example. Wow, I butchered it. I'm gonna put that in paraphrase right now. Okay, there are plenty of ways to be good. I'm plenty of them. So lead by example. He does. He wants every hero confident around him when he's out handling business. Uncertainty will get a woman or man killed. Positive characteristics. Literally, Captain Save-A-Ho. He will never leave a hero behind unless it's lost in space. Scarros will have you sit right on the food pyramid with ease, and that's when he's most calm, when he's talking about food. Negative characteristics, he's always on 100, but with a very claiming chill factor and extremely competitive. I think I need to change that too. Alright, so background and current information. Origin, the worst needed a love interest came in the form of Scarros. Birthplace, Dorgrave, Satron of the Diamond Nation in the Osiris dimension. Family is Anamish, Seol, Destrova. Mother, 71 years old. Ginnick, Yael, Farul. Father, 71 years old. History. Scarros was born and raised in the Osiris dimension. Mother was an interdimensional professor at a highly acclaimed institute, and his father was a dragon slayer, tamer, and breeder. Grew up with a lot of what they desired because they could afford it. Scarros was kind of spoiled, but also incredibly rough-necked, always up to no good, being too strong for his age and making enemies every which way. That made him harder. He was showing too much promise of a future champion back then, academically ridiculous, and wanting to be a doctor by the time he was 6 was very daunting to his parents. Scarros was given as much as a kid as his father figured out ways to keep him powerful because it's in the family's blood. Scarros had physical strength and a dragon companion that helped keep him alive, even when his parents lost him due to the worst and Dalusa entering his life. Ginnick gave his clone all of the knowledge he needed that he happily soaked up when he got back home, but never, not once, did Scarros not hug his father whenever he was in his presence. From learning the ins and outs of dragon handling to actually being on the battlefield with just as strong peers, Scarros was one of the lucky ones of the universe. Now, in concerns of his youth, before he met his best friends, Scarros was going above and beyond scholastically to play rugby and partake in wrestling. Still chose being a superhero over being a nobody. Scarros was mad determined to be somebody because his father raised him to be powerful. The two right-minded people he linked up with led him down the road of joining a well-known hero group, the Thunder Rose group. They always brought the thunder. Got way more deluxe when these 3 kids were assigned to them by the Superhero Guild. Scarros privately made the worst in Dalusa be the stand-in images of his parents, so he could always have the happy family he wanted whenever he wasn't at home. This molded Scarros to be highly ready for action at all times. He felt like he had something to protect, so he stayed with them over the years and kept the family dynamic a secret, even though you don't have to be a psychiatrist to understand his logic for going so hard for his best friends. He's in love with the both of them because they were there for him permanently and he ain't even know it. Even though Dalizza tricked all of their parents by creating clones for the three of them to soak up all of the information for the day-to-day, the clones behaved in very similar ways like them. The worst was a jock, right along with Scarros, then Dalizza was off being the school president, when in reality they were off not tricking in other dimensions or collecting hella bank for the future. Scarros won some championships for his school all years from junior high to high school. He was already proving his might for the future when he becomes a doctor. By being the foodie that he was and tasting cuisine around the world, he was preparing himself to become a if I could talk right. He was preparing himself to become a nutritionist for the stars. I'm gonna take a sip of water. Even though it's already been done, Scarros will find things to make him a more powerful super being in general, not just for the well-being of the general public. Because of his hunt for food, he learned about a lot of urban legends he kept in a journal and embarked on that journal immediately when he graduated high school. The Thunderos group happily took him where he wanted to go, within reason though. They had trouble understanding his journal though, especially with how much power he wanted to obtain. It is something real quick. They told him that he would make a splendid hero if he even gets one of those items. The first item made him famous. So get ready. Legends around the galaxies have it that there's a group of people who like to create suits for super beings out of Visorian metal. Finding them alone is a legend in itself, to the point no one in the Thunderos group has met them. Yet Scarros wanted a costume built specifically by them, and superheroes in unmanned galaxies is not advised for any of them, especially novices. Scarros knew no fears when he was young, always knowing that he won't live forever, on top of always believing that you only get things if you want them. Well, if you go get them. The Thunderos group believed in him, then found Space Colony, its Zog. You know, the space colony that's shaped like a giant O, big as the moon and looks like a planet, is very well hidden out of the usual rotations of orbits, sitting from the sun of that galaxy at a distance of planet Earth at an angle no one flies by. It's a mystery how this space colony is still surviving after all those millennia, but it's 5,000 years old and thriving regardless of the many blips of humanity that plagued it. They haven't had visitors in 30 years prior to the Thunderos group going there, but we're told that the Pouchins do reside there, and the Pouchins is the group that Scarros was looking for. When the Thunderos group heard that, they simply rubbed the back of their head like, what the fuck? Trying to understand how Scarros pieced together all of their intel to locate the group that usually trips away from their home to go make suits or armor or costumes for super beings. Because Scarros found them, they made his costume for free, then made the worst in Dalizza's adult costumes. That's how the three of them got their signature costumes with the chest plates. The Pouchins made them 10 costumes apiece that will grow with their still growing vessels. Because of making it to that space colony, Scarros helped solve nearly 150 cold cases. Because retired criminals who were never caught were on the space colony retiring. While members of their group were doing their technological thing on the low, they were able to piece together a lot of surveillance and DNA data on the space colony. When galactic forces arrived, all hell broke loose, but ended up declaring Scarros as a mindful hero to watch out for, and he let no one else read his journal after that, not even his besties. Some of the criminals are still serving their sentences in multiple prisons. His journal had at least 25 legends of items he wanted to score. While out venturing through heroism, he acquired all 25 items he has ever wanted by the time he was 25. From the silver necklace around his dragon's neck, to finding non-manned space colonies, to finding a treasure worth 30 million to taking that 30 million and building 3 spaceships for himself and his amigos. He was deemed a brainiac when it came to uncovering those legends he heard about in his journals, all because he took what people said to heart while he broke bread with them. Some of the most brooding men that resemble his father that normal people wouldn't dare try to converse with, especially when they are hurrying down food. Him being inquisitive in his teens is why he gained all of his power, acquiring one of the legendary weapons known to man. And the Thunder Rose group consisted of, at that time, 7 adults and 3 teenagers. Captain Mello, Soriana, Black Rex, Missing Bullets, Old Red, Skip to My Blade, Milo Miller, and the 3. His home, the Silver Skull. Entire spaceship looks like a silver symbol of death, with a viewing deck in the shape of skull eyes. Seeing it from above is like looking at a hell of a skull. The front ports are built to look like a system of fang arms, making this grappler ship mighty disrespectful in fights if 2 full rows of sharp teeth are meant for combat. It's also shaped like a racing spaceship and is known to travel a bit faster than the worst and Dalisal spaceships. This is his home away from home. And his spaceship has a biosphere big enough for his dragon Mesa, and she can't like fly around in it because it's not a spaceship or anything, but it's big enough for her and her wingspan times 5. So she has this whole big ass area where she resides, and she can float in. Other homes range from his house in the faculty neighborhood of the Coconut Institute, a mansion on the manned planet of Galaxies 11 and 3. He usually uses the mansions to host house party concerts when they are in hot seasons. Those places are usually his solo vacation spots as well. His home where he works is decorated more so like him. His mansion in Galaxy 11 is decorated more like Dalisal, and his mansion in Galaxy 3 is decorated more like the worst. He leaves the mansions in the hands of the retired members of the Thunder Rose group. Possessions. Ark's Throne. This spear was created in year 3033 by a legendary weaponsmith in Edgemere. It's the harnesser for a cosmic entity called the Galactic Heaven. Ark's Throne was made as an art piece in Nepsilo's Ark, the dimension that creates massive weapons of life. Scarros is in possession of one of them. Over his many years of living, he has come across some formidable opponents and allies. The combination of them have led him to seeking the Ark's Throne. Legend had it that he was 23 when he started looking for the Spear 25 when he found it, all because of Indraco's unfortunate circumstances with going to Nepsilo's Ark. When Scarros was summoned to read his mind, he saw plenty of footage of what he experienced in another dimension. And then he finally got access to that dimension, but didn't tell anyone because the symbols he saw meant that if too many people venture into Nepsilo's Ark at once, it will have to move. A goddess took him there because he asked her to. Then he started reading minds in hopes that somebody would lead him to where one of the Ark's thrones is, in that giant castle in the sky. In real life, because his body was literally taken there, he was moving back in time, a total of 3 days. While he was handling business and locating one of the spears, then proving he had the might to possess one, he was brought back right before he got the call to check on Nepsilo's Ark, realizing that time moves different in that dimension to the point time moves in the opposite direction there. That debunks the wonder why Indracos never got hungry nor tired while in the dimension, yet it still messed with his brain. When Scarros was behaving like he didn't know what was going on, he was able to piece together some shit when he went through Indraco's head again. Doing it allowed Indracos to bounce back from being gone for a year and the psychology behind giving up on life because time was reversing. Scarros was his therapist that day, and he got a very powerful legendary weapon out of it. Ark's Throne is made out of material that heals its wielder and heals at a very increased pace, rendering Scarros damn near invulnerable while wielding it. But because the weapon chose to be bound to him, it will do whatever Scarros wants it to. When he's the weapon, when he's out being a hero without his ace boon coons by his side, he will let someone wrap a hand around the weapon. It will heal them as fast as it can. If that person is unconscious, unable to wrap a hand around a weapon, it will not heal. Scarros has been known to take a lot of damage just to make sure someone of high importance can get healed by it. Pets. Roxos is this pet hellhound. Scored a puppy about 2 years back prior to the beginning of the story. Roxos kind can only be born in the hell region of Edgemere. The puppy was procreated personally by Roughhead so Scarros could have the pet he has always wanted. Roxos behaves like any male dog, always up to no good when Scarros isn't paying attention. He gets along with the worst in Dalizzle's pups, which are of the humanoid species of dogs. Roxos is usually with Scarros, whether it's at home, at the office, in his classroom, or in outer space. Mesa. Mesa is the pet dragon that was born in his father's dragon clan that was bounded to him. They were oddly born, 13 minutes apart, but as soon as she was born, the parents had them touch hand to paw. Mesa is a wisteria-colored dragon with a beyond giant wingspan, an incredibly long tail with an ornament of a silver crescent blade, silver talons, silver underbelly, and silver eyes. She is as powerful as Scarros when it comes to being excessively dangerous and strategic on the battlefield. Because of the bonding ceremony, Mesa grew up with psychic powers, cementing her bond with Scarros. Over time, they developed a sibling relationship that hasn't been broken by any of their adventures. His spaceship has an upper deck built specifically for her to live in. Mesa has been a saving grace to both the Thunder Rose group and the three comrades her entire life. Abilities. So, his physical part. Shika and Kempo are his main fighting techniques. It's incredulous how a hulking man of his stature moves perfectly like a ninja. His other techniques revolve around self-defense, Krav Maga, Hapkido, Pai Gua, Pai Kwa Kwan, Open Palm Dragon Prayer, Hung Gar, Kaju Kimbo, Muay Thai, Shi Kwan, and Dragon. He has many black belts and has won plenty of hand-to-hand competitions, all the while retaining his gray matter and his genius intellect. No one would understand how a natural physical specimen would want to become a doctor, but there he was, dealing with his shortcomings of being so brawn forward naturally by molding a dangerous mind to be. His oath with preserving and saving life is status quo, but villains get none of it. He is more than likely to take a life before the worst or Dalizo ever will. Being on the adventures that he has been on, he has picked up immense physical defenses on the natural and supernatural side of the game. Acquiring as many enchanted gems was his goal because psychics are more strong mentally than physically. Nothing in the psychic defense spear grid offers natural ability gains. He had to get strong another way. In short, he's a physical specimen number in the top 10 of the universe. I don't even know how I missed it the other day. But magical abilities. Projectile mastery. Scarros can produce shards, orbs, waves, beams, and rays. Psychic powers are limited to projectiles, but he makes good uses out of making shards. Shards are his most dangerous powers. Unfortunately for the world, he was born with extremely sharpened psychic powers to develop. He tapped into his powers early, at the age of 5, because his father wanted him to be powerful. Asked his son how powerful would he like to be. Scarros was a fan of one particular UFC fighter at that time. There was a graphic during a trailer edit that formed the sharpness into cutting blades, but he didn't know how to use his powers, so they would always just float in the air. But his father walked into one of them one day and had to be taken care of by the neighborhood healer. They are now strong enough to slash through spaceship metal. Visorium. Force fields. His mind is so formidable, he can create psychic force fields that can deflate anything depending how much power he is forcing or whoever is lending power to him. In most scenarios, he'll save force field time just in case there are some gaseous powers in the atmosphere that can debunk both of his partner's powers. The might of his force fields comes from how his mental fortitude always makes him make the right decision for justice. It pains him to take a life, but his logical reasoning for his actions outweighs the majority of the acting superhero force in its entirety. He has never been broken, never been worn down, and never submitted to anyone's mind tricks. Levitation and flight comes with the natural territory of psychic powers. The addition of the flying virus allows him to fly at a double rate. So that explains his 80 miles per hour, which is very quick for somebody to get up to when flying. But in a lot of cases, level 5 super beings, they can get up to extremely high speeds, coining the phrase 0 to 60 or 0 to 100. Then there's group levitation and flight. Goes hand in hand with being able to move 3 tons worth of weight at heightened modes of energy usage. Hive mind. Because Scarros is so powerful, the psychic imprints he gets from people are indexed for a very long time. The longer he has spent around certain people, the more he can sense them, to the capacity that within a mile he can sense them without using his powers. His dormant powers can let him know whenever his partners are within range again. Memory eraser. Over the years, he has spent time in his spirit grid that allows him to fold creases of memories into nothing. He uses this ability sparingly because if a psychic calls him in to deal with any trauma patients, they talk about the entire patient's mental history. Personality prior to the trauma is key because they could carry on with behavior that got them there in the first place or set them back on a personal course through life. In an instant, you won't be able to feel anymore. It's like killing a part of someone and getting another version of them. Results always vary. Memory perfection. Over time, he can mentally boost memories even when they are extremely foggy. Because he can remember everything that has ever happened to him, he can clear up the last time someone thought of something and keep going back until he gets the memory clearer. In a lot of cases, this has helped eyewitnesses close cases against a lot of dangerous criminals. And in this instance, every time you remember a memory, you're remembering the last time you remember it. So all your memories do get foggy over time, even the traumatic ones. Then there's telekinesis. It can move up to 3 tons of weight easily and has been known to alter flight plans of aero vehicles. He can even punch a giant-ass battleship hard enough to change the trajectory of a giant blast with hella ease. So in this case, if he's out in a spacesuit and in outer space, during spaceship battles, some of them are cannon prone, some of them are grappler prone. The grappler prone ones are the ones that are moving. The cannon ones are the ones that are sitting still and absorbing solar energy around the space by absorbing light from stars and the closest sun to them. And the cannon spaceships are usually sitting still, so if they don't want their big ass blast to go in a certain direction, Scarros would get out there, fly as fast as he can, and punch that damn spaceship and alter the trajectory of a blast at the right time. Then there's telepathy. Mentally, his strength is strong enough to break down any walls built in the mind. He can literally bust through most people's head if they don't have any anti-psychic wear or armor. With his doctorate ways, he is rather smooth with the infiltration. Whenever he wants to let somebody know that he's in their mind, he will either cause pain or give them a very keen sense of welcoming. Spectrums are opposite and so far out. You would have to walk 1,000,000 steps to get to the highest amounts of pleasure he can provoke or the devastating pain that causes decade-long comas. Memory alteration. He has the ability of altering memories slightly. In cases where he does this, he is choosing to alter a memory versus eradicating it. Depends on the victim of the trauma. The more hazardous a predicted outcome, the more likely he'll alter a memory, then much later eradicate the memory. So there was this video game by Capcom called Remember Me, and if you know that game, you know that she was altering memories of people and whatnot throughout the gameplay, and that's where memory altercation came from. He doesn't have any transformations and his weaknesses. Anti-psychic material will force Scarros to change his battlefield tactics, but bombarding him with danger that forces him to exert his energy more also changes his battlefield tactics. Scarros lives the creed of doctors when it comes to saving people. He will always save all heroes on the battlefield versus going for kill or ending opportunities. Psyching him out by endangering innocents will force him to act on saving them. Let me edit that real quick. Before he saves himself. He is highly dangerous until he runs out of energy to wield his psychic powers. Also, he has no extra defenses when it comes to attrition damage. Hitting him with a side effect kind of agent goes against his famous spear and will keep him from healing throughout an entire battle in the super being way everyone knows him for. And that's Scarros. Alright. This man is powerful. So, like I said, his origin was based off of the worst getting a boyfriend, and since the worst is actually based off of somebody I know. When I was filling out the characters and whatnot, the secondary characters, a lot of people that were on an initial the initial 57 characters that the Crimson Collection will choose. Some of them already have girlfriends, boyfriends in real life, and those they already had characters in the making of for the secondary list, or some of them already have their couples on the primary list. And when I was talking to Timur one day, we were just talking about men in general, and that's when I came up with the idea of giving the worst a character to be with in the story and whatnot. So Scarros was eventually developed, then he eventually manifested completely, and he came in the form of a psychic. And I do not believe in making psychic characters like Jean Grey or Professor X or Kenshin or whatever that character's name is that's blind on Mortal Kombat with the psychic powers. I don't believe in making weak psychic characters at all. There's no time for that. If there is a psychic character in the Tri-Stone era, they are a telepath and a telekinetic. It's status quo across all psychic boards. There's not one or the other. It's always both of them. Psychic as a superpower is all-encompassing when it comes to that. So, until the next time, keep it gentle. I mean it. Mwah.